We're going to start with our disclaimer slide. Please take it seriously. I'll put it for a couple more seconds. If you like, take a picture, go over it. And my name is Puneet Chawla. I am one of the, what's my title? I'm just kidding. I'm one of the product marketing engineers here at VCF division within Broadcom. And I've been working with, a few customers, and we have in this slide, we have a scenario of one of the customer we'll talk about, and pretty much rest of the session will be catered around that. So this customer, we named them Acme Corporation, are very excited really to get to VCF. Today they only have vSphere in their environment. They have two data centers, Site A and Site B. Site A is one of their main sites where they have multiple vCenters deployed, and Site B is the site where they have important workloads, but it's a little older site, maybe a legacy hardware with older version of vCenter. But they have done a lot of investment in Site A, and very excited to go on VCF, but they have some doubts, right? Some concerns. So let's go over some of the key considerations that they have. First is when they want to go to VCF, they want to make sure there is no downtime for their workloads. These are mission critical workloads, very important to the business. They do not want any kind of downtime because it disrupts and they lose money. Same thing with the data. Data integrity is very important to them. It's very important to their customers. So they want to make sure they do not lose any data while starting their journey to VCF. Other important consideration are network connectivity. There are developers hard-coded IP addresses in the application. We have seen that. And if they were to change the networks, change the IP, that's a disruption they cannot afford. So data or network is important. Scalability is also very important to them because they have multiple big data centers, and within the legacy data center, they also want to do the hardware refresh. So potentially migrate their workloads to the data center A. And they want to do that in scale. They want to do a lot of virtual machines at the same time. But not only that, they're doing an investment in VCF. So they want to make sure that the product, this VCF private cloud really grows with their business going forward. Last but not least, cost and time. They want to make sure they do it within a certain budget and on time. So Chester, what do you think? How can we help these customers? Here you go.
All right. Thanks, Puneet. My name is Chester Chan. I'm a technology product manager with Broadcom, and I'm responsible for VCF lifecycle management. So this scenario with Acme is very similar to many of the stories that we have heard from our customers. And we certainly have a few good strategies to get Acme and all of you to VCF 9. But before we talk about those strategies, let's do a quick review of VCF 9 architecture topology so you have a better understanding of the components that are in VCF 9. And by the way, for the folks in the back, feel free to come up, and it's perfectly okay. We still have seats in the front. So a VCF fleet is an environment that is managed by a single instance of VCF operations. So this is a single instance that goes across the fleet. And a fleet can be in a single site, it can be in multiple sites, and these sites can be in a single region or in a multiple region. So there's a lot of flexibility into how you would structure a VCF fleet, and really you can design it to suit your specific needs. Within a fleet, there would be typically multiple VCF instances, and each VCF instance is where your workloads would run. Within a VCF instance, there's always one management domain, and this is where the management appliances and applications and workloads will be running, such as SD Manager, vCenter, and VCF Network Manager. And in the bottom over there is one or many workload domains. This is where your applications would run. So for Acme's scenario, we have really two main strategies that we can leverage to get them onboarded to VCF 9. The first strategy is to use VCF installer, which is a new component we introduced in VCF 9, and VCF operations to import these existing components into a VCF instance. The benefit and advantage of this approach is that you can quickly onboard and manage these compatible infrastructure using VCF without having to replace hardware and without having to make any further changes to your existing workloads. It's very low impact and certainly meets some of the criteria that Puneet has set out as requirements from the customers. A second approach is generally suitable for a hardware refresh or a consolidation type of scenario, again, like that Acme is looking for. And in this scenario, we would leverage XCX. So you would start by creating a new VCF instance, as we discussed before. And once that is set up, you can use XCX to migrate whether it's vSphere-based workloads or supported non-vSphere workloads into this VCF instance. XCX is capable of seamless migration of these workloads while maintaining a network consistency. And it also supports multiple migration types to meet your application-specific needs and requirements and SLO. And in sum, with these two strategies, we're confident that Acme and you can achieve this journey to VCF 9 in a fast, reliable, and repeatable way.
Yeah, Chester, this is really great. So two strategies, and we really don't, we can pick either or we can use both, as we're going to show further in this presentation, yeah?
Right. I think the main point is that depending on the current situation, the specific situation, per data center, you can deploy any one of these strategies and get the workloads into VCF. So VCF Foundation Installer, as mentioned, this is a new component that is introduced in VCF 9. This is a single installer that has a guided wizard to guide you through the process of deploying all VCF components. In previous versions, the different components may have different installation tools and processes. So now we have, with VCF 9, we've consolidated them all into one installer. The installer is able to reduce risk by using validated topologies, as well as automating some complex workflows. The installer provides some flexible configurations and options, where, for example, it has built-in support for downloading binaries to, obviously, online sites, but also air-gapped sites. You can choose to deploy brand new VCF components, as well as importing existing components, as the strategy alluded to. And there is options for availability, where you can deploy initially in a single node and expand over time, or deploy in an HA multi-node model. The installer supports saving all of these configurations into a JSON file, such that for your subsequent installation of VCF, or maybe in a different data center, you can reuse these configurations, or at least start with these configurations, to make this process more repeatable. So in sum, with VCF installer, we should be able to achieve a fast, flexible, reliable, and repeatable experience with deploying VCF. How does that sound?
It sounds really great, Chester. So from what the customer is hearing really is that everything remains the same as they had previously. We just add more on top of it and make no changes.
Right. And now that we have an understanding of the strategy and approach and some of the tools involved in this process, let's dive into the next level detail of, well, how do I actually accomplish that? In this example, we have a vSphere 8 deployment with NSX and ARIA operations. But I'm not quite ready to upgrade this vCenter to version 9 at this point. So, well, how do I get this and import this to VCF 9? Well, the first step is to upgrade ARIA Operations 5 to VCF Operations 9.0. This is a critical management component of VCF 9, and it needs to be upgraded first. And then using the VCF installer that we mentioned a little bit earlier, you can use that to deploy a new VCF fleet and a new instance of VCF. You would follow the wizard that guides you through the process of converging and bringing in these existing components as is to the management domain of this new VCF instance. And here, as you can see, you are not forced to upgrade all of the components all at once to version 9 before or during this process of importing. You can upgrade any of these components over time at your schedule and in accordance to your requirements. And a slightly different example, again, here we have a deployment of vSphere 8 with ARIA operations, but no NSX. And in this scenario, for this vCenter, I'm actually ready to upgrade that to 9 first. So I can do that together with the VCF operations upgrade that I mentioned earlier. Follow a very similar process of using VCF installer to deploy the VCF instance and bring these components in. On the networking side, as I mentioned, there's an option to join an existing instance of NSX, or you can have an option to create a single node instance or a 3-node cluster for high availability. Well, let's take a look at a demo video of how this process works. So here, I have already configured a connection to the Broadcom depot and have downloaded the necessary binaries already. And following the wizard, I would start with deploying the process of deploying a VCF fleet. Over here, we can select to import the existing VCF operations and vCenter instances, as we mentioned a little bit earlier in the scenario. And together with that, you can also select the option to import NSX, but in this particular deployment, NSX is not deployed at this point. Here, we would provide some general information about the new VCF instance to be created. As mentioned, we have the option for a single node deployment or a multi-node, a high availability deployment is where you would choose here. And this configuration is applied to all of the components in the VCF stack. This is where you would connect to the existing instance of VCF operations, and also provide some information about the new fleet management appliance as well as the collector appliance that will be deployed as part of this process. Okay. It is optional to deploy VCF automation together with this process, but you can certainly select to deploy VCF automation later or connect to an existing instance of VCF automation as well. In this example, let's go ahead and deploy a new instance of VCF automation. And then with vCenter, again, we're connecting to the existing vCenter with providing some credentials to it. And then we will go to the networking portion. As mentioned a little bit earlier, this is a new single node deployment of NSX Manager. And here we'll provide some configurations for that new deployment. And then again, lastly, with SDZ Manager appliance, provide the password. And then after review these configurations and settings, and by the way, this is where you can kind of save and reuse those settings. We'll go into validating these configurations and ensure that the components that you've selected earlier can be imported and the new components can be successfully deployed. You can review and remediate any errors and warnings in this screen, and you can revalidate after any remediation before proceeding to the actual deployment. You can monitor deployment progress within the installer, and after the installation process is completed, we'll go over to the VCF operations experience. And here you can see in the dashboard now we have one VCF instance deployed. There's one VCF management domain with that one vCenter that we have just imported. And in the inventory view, you can see a little bit more details about the deployment that we just made. So this is kind of the first example of you're deploying a new instance of VCF, you're bringing in these existing components, and as mentioned, with the latest patches of VCF 9, we will be able to support bringing in version 8 components into VCF 9 management. Okay. So now that we have the first instance of VCF already deployed, and with the management domain set up, now we're ready to add workload domains. This is kind of the bread and butter. This is where all of your applications would typically run. And again, in this example, we have a vSphere 8 deployment with NSX. And again, we're not quite ready to upgrade this to version 9 just yet. We haven't arrived in that schedule yet. Here, we would use VCF operations, and using the add workload domain and import vCenter function, you'll be able to create a new workload domain, bringing in these existing components. Again, there's an option to join an existing instance of NSX, or you can create a new instance of it. And here, the advantage is that the vCenter, the ESX host, they remain completely unchanged in this import process. So you can bring this first under VCF 9 management and then use VCF operations to upgrade these components over time. All right, let's take a look at another demo. Over here, we're continuing from where we left off. We have a single instance of VCF with one management domain, and this is the inventory screen that we saw a little bit earlier. Using the add workload domain function, you can choose to create a new one, obviously, but you can also import an existing vCenter. You can provide the credentials and information to connect to the existing vCenter. And in this particular example, this instance is not connected to NSX, so I would disable that option. But obviously, if you have NSX installed, you'll provide the credentials over there. We'll then perform a number of pre-checks to ensure that the vCenter that you've selected meets the criteria of being imported into VCF 9. And again, you can use this screen to review any errors and remediate them and recheck. With networking, as mentioned, we have the option to use an existing one or create a new instance. And in this case, we're creating a new one, and we are selecting to create a single node NSX. After all of this configuration, we would do one more round of validation to ensure that the import is going to be successful. And again, you will remediate any errors here before proceeding with the import process. You will be able to use the task view in VCF operations to monitor any tasks. And once the import is done, you'll be able to see in an inventory, now we have a new workload domain deployed with the vCenter that we have just specified imported. So this kind of concludes our first strategy of importing existing virtual infrastructure to VCF. Let me hand it over to Puneet and talk more about how would we migrate these existing workloads to VCF using XCX in a scenario where I'm doing hardware refresh or consolidation as Acme would.
Yeah, thanks, Chester. You know, watching your straightforward demos, I was really getting very excited about our customers. Like, so easy to do this and very straightforward process to include your current environment into VCF and get all the benefits of that VCF private cloud right away. That's exciting. So as Chester mentioned, we'll switch it a little bit, talk about the different scenario where customers have older hardware, maybe older version of vSphere, and they're in a situation where they cannot just go and upgrade to VCF 9. In that case, especially in use case we are talking about, customers also going through a hardware refresh cycle. And we see that a lot in the field, that during the hardware refresh cycle, customers try to do the upgrade also at the same time for their infrastructure. And we'll keep the same theme going, no downtime, no data. And let's talk about the same build up. So we already did the data center piece where we included it into VCF now. And next we're gonna move our workload from data center B into data center A as the customer is doing more investment in data center A and going over the upgrade cycle for the hardware. So before we going to start talking about the migration itself, what we have seen in field, customers who put their time and effort upfront in planning the migration have more success in the end to get to the stage where they want to go, right? And for that, and this is new in VCF 9.0, in VCF operations, we have added a migration planning tool that gives you step-by-step guide on how to create a migration plan. And it starts with really discovering your application, what type of, what set of virtual machines make up an application, what are my dependencies of those applications, and then we create multiple waves within that plan, because nobody for most of the time do lift and shift of the whole data center. It's usually happen gradually over time, either per application or maybe per rack, depending on how you guys pick it. But you can create those waves, migration waves within this plan. And last but not least, you can just go ahead and execute the plan, and HCX in the back take over and do the migration for you. This is I have a demo next, and here's a screenshot of that plan. So the demo will go, a lot of screen changes, but to keep track, there are 5 steps. We'll create a plan, scope, and migration waves. And in the end, we create the mobility group and execute the plan. So for any first thing, we're gonna start with doing the application discovery piece. So here I have, again, in VCF operations, my application discovery page where I can see all these tiles as an application itself. This came in pre-discovered depending on the flow of the traffic within the data center. And the lines it's showing is the dependencies they have with other applications. But we can also create our new application, right? Not everybody have data or flow enabled, or a lot of customers actually use their custom attributes, custom tagging to organize their virtual machine. You can bring that as an Excel sheet, and we can create a new application based on that. So here is showing me one of my HR application and showing me the dependency of it. So we're gonna add more other applications that are also dependent with it, so they all get migrated at the same time without breaking the application itself. It shows me here the flows for this and also the external services we are using. So this could be other application or even IP addresses in this list. Once you have done creating the application, we will go under Plan and click on the Migration Planning tab. Within here, we're going to first create our plan. It's as easy as giving it a name, and most importantly, providing the scope of the plan. I could have thousands and thousands of virtual machines. I don't want them all to be in the scope on day one. So I can create my scope, and we have a really nice filtration system on the left to filter per name, per tag, per network, however you like. And this is a back and forth process. When you're creating a plan, you're going to go back to the application discovery page. You're going to check, hey, for this particular application, this is a two-tier application. I would like to learn more about it. One tier has certain VMs, second tier has 4 VMs. What's the flow look like? What are the dependencies of these? So I can add that to within the scope. So, and you can save the plan and take your time to get to creating a good plan. Once we're done creating the plan, the next process is to create the wave. So we're going to start with the first wave of our HR application, and we'll pick all the virtual machines within that. Again, we can create a lot of filters. So in this case, I'm creating waves per network. So what are the virtual machines within an app connected to a certain network? Let's create a mobility group for that. And then I could create multiple mobility groups for each network, or in this case, I created a second mobility group for all the rest of the virtual machines that are in different networks. So there are 2 mobility groups created showcasing which network those workloads belongs to. So there is a lot of flexibility in the product to create these waves. And once we're done, it's really as easy as committing. And once they commit the wave at this point, in the backend, it takes all this data and push it to HCX, where that solution go ahead and do the migration itself. So for this demo, this really concludes this demo. And next, what we're going to do is let's talk about that HCX component I mentioned a couple of times. So HCX is a migration tool. It's been created ground up from within the company, and it's built for migration and mobility purposes. There are 2 core components to it. One, it's the networking piece, and the another one is the workload migration piece. Networking-wise, when we're doing the migration, having a nice pipeline between both sites is very important. So if you have connectivity over internet, or you have your own L2 or VPN, however you have the setup between the sites, HCX can utilize and create its own pipeline on top of it to give you a smooth way of migrating your workloads from site A to site B. First, it starts with the replication. And there's a lot of traffic engineering is also done. There is also option for encryption and more secure network. And it can go very large scale also. We'll talk about it in a couple of slides. Next is the HCX migration types. And I have a different slide for us. There are 6 of them. Let's quickly go over a few of them and how they're different and when you can use individual migration types. The first is the bulk migration. As the name suggests, you can migrate a lot of virtual machines at the same time, up to 1,000 virtual machines using the bulk migration. The cool thing about this migration is we actually force the reboot of the virtual machine, but that gives us a lot of opportunities, things to do, things like upgrading the hardware version of my virtual machine, upgrading the VM tools as I'm doing the migration. I have some post scripts I would like to run within the guest operating system. I can do all that customization with this migration type, but also do a lot of virtual machine or very big size virtual machines migration. Next is the replication-assisted vMotion, in short, RAV. And this is one of the really cool migration types, at least one of my favorites. It's because it does the replication, so it replicates the workload first, and then once the switchover time is there, it actually uses the vMotion technology to vMotion the workload, which means there is no downtime for and we are doing between multiple sites or far away sites vMotion. Other thing you can do is, again, it's 1,000 virtual machine at a time. You can replicate and migrate. It do not change the IP address, do not change the MAC address. So if you want to keep that critical IPs and network attached the way it is on the site, A to B, you can do that via this migration type. HCX-assisted vMotion is the latest addition, and this is really your regular vMotion. Just like you're familiar with doing this from vCenter, you can do it directly from the HCX UI. So all the migrations are in one place, but few cool things about this is you can, because HCX is orchestrating, you can pick multiple VMs. I want to, for example, migrate 10 VMs at a time. It will still be 1 or 2 VM, just like the bounds of the vMotion. But once that migration is done, HCX will pick up the next couple and will do the migration. Other important thing to note here is the scheduling. With vMotion, when you do it vCenter, you go ahead and do the vMotion, it happens right away. With HAV or HCX-assisted vMotion, you can schedule it for a certain time. HCX vMotion and cold migration are similar technologies that vMotion uses. Cold is for the virtual machines that are turned off. And the last one in the list is the operating system assisted vMotion. This is the one you would use to migrate from a different hypervisor. If you like to migrate from a Hyper-V or a KVM into vSphere, you're going to use this operating system migration to migrate those workloads to VCF. Quick note on the OSAM is that this is the only migration types that uses an agent in the operating system to do the migration. The rest of them, there is no agent required. All right, so what this will bring us, as I mentioned a couple of times, 1,000 virtual machine migrating at a time. In our example, we're showing 2 sites. You can pair up to 25 sites with one individual HCX manager. You can do 64 service meshes and up to 8 networks. Can do very large virtual machine migrate up to a 62 terabyte big virtual machine can be migrated at a time. So it brings a huge scale. It's a very mature product, and a lot of customers uses it. They use it already for their on-prem to on-prem migration. And last year we had a number out that over 1 million migrations were done via HCX. So very, very mature product, and customers use it for all kind of things like rehosting, just like our example of Acme to rehosting into a VCF environment, right? Or re-platforming or upgrading the hardware cycle, just like what we're trying to do in example today. And rebalancing, we have multiple workload or data centers. I like to make sure that I'm utilizing all of them. I can do that. Here are the quick architecture slide I have, and then we'll get into demos. HCX Manager is what get deployed on each side as a pair, and underneath that it automatically deploys a couple new appliances depending on what options you enable. If you enable network extension, it will automatically deploy that appliance as a pair, and the network extension will happen via that. So yeah, feel free to take a picture of that. Next, let's go into a demo. And to set up the demo, we have from site B, vCenter, VLAN, and we're going to land our virtual machine into a VPC subnet, which is pretty cool network technology in VCF 9.0. All right, let's go demo. And we're going to start from HCX side. I'm on the dashboard page showing 2 of my sites connected between San Francisco and DC. We'll click on the migration button, and we create a new mobility group. This mobility group will contain of, first we provide the name and the virtual machines we want to migrate. So we can filter out within our current vCenter. It's a small demo environment, so I picked a few virtual machines within there. And we're going to spend some time on this slide. First, we're going to pick our destination vCenter, where these virtual machines are going to land. That's where I'm doing. So I picked my resource group, but I can pick it by host or any other way I have it set up on the destination side. Next, I'm picking the folder itself. This is an optional. If I'd like to organize everything within folder within vCenter, I can do that. Next is the storage. So I picked my storage where these virtual machines are going to land. And this is a good time for me to think if I want to change the formatting of that. If I want to do thin, thick, keep it same, I can pick all those options here. And we talked about the different type of workload migration types. I'm going to pick one of them right here. Which one do I want, bulk or RAV? In this case, I go ahead and pick the RAV migration, but all my options are available per mobility group that I'm creating. And the next one is the really most interesting piece, which is the scheduling. So there are two types of schedules. One is for replication. When do I want the replication of data to start? That could be earlier. I might have a lot of VMs, a lot of big VMs. And the second one is the switchover. Once a replication is done, I want it to wait until the switchover window is there. Maybe my maintenance window, Saturday, 11 p.m. Other options are if I would like to change actually I cannot see it very well from there, but yeah, if I like to upgrade my VM tools, or if I like to upgrade my virtual machine hardware, if I would like to replicate my security tags that I've created maybe in NSX, I can do all of those options there. And last but not least, we'll go into the individual virtual machine itself, and I'll check my network, from which network to which network it's going into. This is smart enough to know that the network virtual machine is currently in is a stretched network to the subnet, so it's already picked that for me. But if I would like, I can change that or pick that for a bunch of virtual machines at the same time. Next, we'll validate the process. Make sure everything is good. It's going to check on the destination side. You have resources, the network is up. There are like over 100 validation checks it does in the background. And we'll go ahead and start the migration. Migration, it's pretty straightforward. And it shows me the screen of all the virtual machines as they're getting migrated. But if I want to look in the event of individual virtual machine, I can see that also. It shows me, and this is a real-time information as the virtual machine is migrating. I, of course, fast-forward it for the demo purposes, but it shows me real-time information. For some reason, if migration fails, it has a seed checkpoint available, which means that if, let's say, network, I found out this was the issue, I go resolve the issue and I start the migration again, it will pick up from the point of failure, not from the beginning. So if you had a very large virtual machine that took 3 days to maybe replicate, it's going to start from that point and you're not going to lose your time. So that's what we had.
Well, great. I think Acme is probably going to be satisfied with these strategies. And here, the important point is that within VCF9, we have a various set of tools already included in VCF9 that helps Acme and all of our customers to make this journey to VCF9.
Yeah.
So hopefully we've left you with some good information. And we can we should have time to take a couple of questions.
We have some time for Q&A, so if you want to go to the
please,
mic.
there's a mic in the aisle, so we can hear your questions a little bit better. But yeah.
I have a question about VM identity. Which of these migration paths so let's say you have third-party backup, right? Okay. Replication tools, for protection that aren't necessarily within the VM stack, and you get a new VM UID, and now your grandfather, father, son back to your backups. Because is there a better which of these, does that make sense? Because I can move into VCF 9, but if my vCenter is changed or I'm ACXing into a new environment, now my goods have changed, right? And now these other tools now have kind of, it's a new machine to them, new backup, new full. You know, I lose a lot of data dedupe and stuff in other ways.
So I think the first strategies, the first set of strategies we mentioned around importing the existing environment into VCF9, that's probably where you would be. And the reason why I say that is the vCenter or ESX hosts themselves are unchanged during that process. So if they have already existing integration with any backup and restore solution, that should not be impacted. However, obviously, as part of this process, we're deploying some new components, right? So for these new components and new, especially management VMs that we deploy during this process, you probably need to integrate that into your backup strategies. But regardless, those are just net new. What I want to emphasize here is that that strategy and that process would not impact the existing workloads or existing hosts that you have already set up a backup policy or process for.
So that strategy where you move your existing into workload domain 3 or 4 later when you're
whichever
ready.
it is, right.
Okay, thank you.
That will be great.
If I have a vCenter that has my, sorry.
Sorry, there's one over there.
Yeah, I have a single vCenter right now. I'm a non-VCF customer that has my management cluster in it plus all my workload clusters. If I do the import of that vCenter, is it going to take all of those clusters and put it into that one domain?
Yes. So what you have is a consolidated kind of deployment. So again, like that will continue to function as both your management and workload.
Is there any downsides to that versus maybe wanting to do a migration so that I could split those domains out?
It really depends on the requirements. There are certain maximum limits involved with having a consolidated deployment. So while it is simpler, it does have certain restrictions on the maximum capability. So if your environment is not necessarily growing very quickly, you can certainly first land on with the migration land in VCF9 and then do further changes to it, and that would be perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Sorry.
Hi. Is there a reason why it's not possible to do only the vMotion of the resources, the CPU and the memory, without storage synchronization?
Say it again, please. Why
is it not possible to keep the storage and do only the vMotion of the memory and the CPU? Because we use the same storage with the new and the old hardware, and we only want to do the vMotion of the VM without migrating the data because it's...
So the data store is same on the both sides?
Yeah.
Your two sides sharing
we don't want to synchronize the data because it takes time.
Right.
Why is that not possible?
Yeah, with HCX, I don't believe we have that option because most of the time, these are two different data centers where they're like miles apart and there's no data.
VMware assumes that's the situation.
That's most of the use cases.
Everything new and that you do a migration.
Right.
But yeah, it would be handy if it was possible to keep the data on the same place and that you only move to new server hardware.
Yeah, that's a good feedback.
Yeah, we'll take that feedback to the product management team.
We don't see that use case that often that within data centers the storage is same, but it's good to know. Thanks.
For HCX migrations, is there any options that I could have like the scheduled storage ahead of time like you have with RAV, but this CPU architecture is changing, so I need, as part of the migration, to have a guest OS shut down, move it, and then guest OS power on.
So with the bulk, that's exactly what bulk will do, right?
Okay.
You want it to be powered off and
yeah. So part of this migration, we're doing Intel to AMD.
Yes.
I have to have it powered down.
Yes. So the HCX do provide that capability. So between hardware vendor, you can do the migration, as you mentioned, between Intel and AMD or vice versa. That migration do require a reboot.
Yes.
So it is a bulk migration only. RAV today do not support that, but if that's what your use case is, that you do not want it to change or I guess power off, I can bring that feedback in.
Well,
Absolutely.
So for the bulk migration,
Yes.
will it still do storage replication ahead of time? Because these are
Yes.
very large VMs.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Bulk migration and Rev is very similar. They're both replication based, so they will replicate it ahead of time. You can schedule it ahead of time, and then the cutoff can be scheduled later. Absolutely.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So if I have multiple vCenters, but they all share one set of NSX, like a one NSX manager cluster, when we go to do the import, how will that work as far as, because I know with VCF9, they want one NSX manager per vCenter.
So actually, I think if you are importing these different vCenters into the same VCF instance, you should be able to point it to the same NSX manager. I don't think there's a limit to that.
Yeah, let me just answer that for you. In 9.0, you will be able to import with the shared NSX feature. So what we will do is we'll ask you to pick all the vCenters that share the NSX in one bulk import. And we will detect that it is talking to the same NSX. And when we import it into VCF, you get that same shared NSX for the same number of vCenters. Now, once it comes to VCF9, you do have the option to break it apart, make multiple workload domains, and have additional NSX managers if you so choose to, but they are day-end operations. And there was another gentleman who was asking, I'm not sure if he's still around, he was asking if I have multiple, single vCenter with different clusters, do I bring that into the same domain? Yeah, there's a couple of choices. You can bring it into the same domain, but you can also split them apart into multiple workload domains if you so choose to. There is no one rigid way to do so. So much of the NSX, shared NSX environments will be preserved as is. But of course, we'll expect you to do some intelligent picking or selection of vCenters for it. Okay.
Yeah, I think, the time for our session is over. Maybe we can take more questions.
We'll be around.
We'll be.
So, yeah,
Thank you
we'll
very
keep it
much
filtered.
for everyone for coming.
Thank you.